Nashville Predators making some changes at practice before they take on the Toronto Maple Leafs this season. Will it lead to more scoring? Plus, Roman Josi off to a bit of a slow start, at least on the score sheet. How much do we read into that? We'll talk about it today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start out by saying hello to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys. We appreciate the support you give us week after week. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at The Hockey News.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get 200 bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, some interesting stuff on today's show. Roman Josi off to a little bit of a slow start by his standards that he's set the past couple years. How much do we read into that? We're going to dive into that discussion. But first, talking about some changes for the Nashville Predators already earlier in the season. Now, this isn't just rotating fourth line guys out. It looks like the line blender is making its first big appearance of the regular season here, Ann.
Yeah. So it seems like Andrew Brunette has sort of settled into some lines that are working. Of course, Cody Glass's injury shifted some of those things, but they've kind of been pretty consistent the last couple of games. In practice yesterday, a little adjustment to the lines in practice. Andrew Brunette has not commented whether this is the game plan going forward for Saturday night's game. But of note, I think, and worth discussing, that the top line has changed slightly. Instead of Juuso Parssinen and playing with FIlip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly yesterday in practice, Cole Smith was running drills with FIlip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly. This is information that I believe will be embraced with joy and love amongst the entire Nashville Predators fan base.
Can I actually just say, though, there's obviously some detractors to this.
Yeah.
There is a surprising amount of people online who have been like, Cole Smith's been pretty good this year.
Yes, thank goodness,
y'all. Like more so than, that would have been the case if this happened last year. I will just point out that more people seem to be a little bit more open to this. Yes. Maybe that's the right word to use.
Yes. You nailed the whole Cole Smith situation last season when you were talking about it's the lid on the jelly jar. Cole Smith was not what everybody was really upset about last season. He was just the thing that caused the fight in the hockey marriage between fans and the Nashville Predators.
Yeah.
He was not the issue. And look, Cole Smith off to a hot start, did a ton of work in the offseason and really off to a hot start for the Nashville Predators. And may I say this respectfully, and without a ton of worry, that top line could use a little hot start.
Yeah. Look, Cole Smith is not somebody with as much upside as a Phil Tomasino or Juuso Parssinen or, anything like that. He's not somebody who's as skilled as a FIlip Forsberg or Ryan O'Reilly, but this is almost like the Kiefer Sherwood discussion we had yesterday. If he can come in and just make good plays, that's what they need. And you watch him and he's fast. Like his skating, I think, has kind of fit this style of play Andrew Brunette wants to play with. And remember, way back in the first week of training camp, Cole Smith was one of the people that Andrew Brunette highlighted right away and said, look, he's come in. He's one of he's worked hard. He's one of the people that's kind of gotten it, the way we want to play the quickest.
Yeah.
And, we saw him spend some time on that first line in training camp and didn't look like he sort of was out of place. Now he's, looks like he may get a chance at least to start the game against Toronto if these practice lines hold up.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance. And I do want to reiterate what you're saying. Like in training camp, one of the players that stood out was Cole Smith. I mean, with speed, with kind of an all-around improvement to his game. And if you look at the things that Andrew Brunette was a little bit frustrated about when it came to the loss to the Vancouver Canucks, some of those things are things that Cole Smith really excels at, winning the puck battle, keeping puck possession. You can say whatever you want about Cole Smith, this, that, or the other thing, but he is really hard on the boards. He is hard on the puck. He will get a turnover. He will keep possession of the puck. He will use his body physically. And also, let's not forget Cole Smith off to a pretty hot offensive start, y'all. He is playing with some confidence and well earned. So whether this is exactly what's going to happen with Toronto, I don't know, but I do think keep your eye on this because, that's kind of how things were unfolding at practice. And I agree with you. FIlip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, different skill set maybe than Cole Smith, but sometimes you need a Cole Smith in there to jumpstart the FIlip Forsberg and the Ryan O'Reilly. We've talked about the fact that those guys are getting great chances, but they're not finishing them.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a puzzle piece that helps click that for O'Reilly and Forsberg.
That's sort of the biggest thing I think the Preds need right now on that top line is a finisher because the chances are there. And Ryan O'Reilly made some good plays against Vancouver, but 0 shots on goal. Juso Parssinen, who is, we'll talk about him coming up in just a second because he's another piece in these changes the Preds are making, but 0 shots against Vancouver and they're down. And FIlip Forsberg had 4 shots on goal in that game. But again, like it's kind of up to him to be the finisher on that line. Like he's the 42 goal scorer on the team. The Preds got to find a way on that top line to convert some of these good looks, these good opportunities, these good possessions into goals on the scoreboard. And that's been the biggest, as you would say, and the hitch in the giddy up. To start this season so far is that first line we talked about on Monday. That first line is absolutely cooking.
Yes.
Right now. Like they are on fire. The only thing they're not doing well is finishing those opportunities and putting the puck in the net. It's like, it's like if the Harlem Globetrotters, did just like some fancy routine or something like that and then, miss the alley-oop dunk.
Oh gosh.
Right at the end. That kind of feels like the first line of the Nashville Predators right now is who's going to be the guy that, takes the ball midair, tomahawks it, and then just slams it home. Yeah. That's, I'm still waiting for somebody on that top line to do that. And look, Cole Smith is a player who gets into dangerous areas. Not saying he's going to, snipe one from the circles every game. But, he's somebody that, hey, FIlip Forsberg gets a good shot and there's a rebound. Cole Smith should be right there to kind of clean things up.
Yes. And those are the kind of goals I think that Nashville wants to get. Those are the goals that are going to get this team going. You get some of that stuff happening in front of the net. You get traffic in front of the net. And then, you've got somebody there for tip-ins, for rebounds. And those kind of greasier goals, you know what? They count. Same amount as the pretty stuff. And let's not forget Cole Smith nailing the breakaway shots so far this season. So if Ryan O'Reilly can find him with a stretch pass, hey, who knows what could happen. So I am 100% here for this move. I think everybody breathed through the fact that, this is just going to be a season where we're going to see shifts in lines because Andrew Brunette is still learning the players. We have a lot of young players that are still learning their own game. We have a whole team still learning a system and getting comfortable with it. So we're going to see some of these tweaks. I think this is a really great move. I think this will be really interesting to see what happens with it and if this is the top line that we're going to see against Toronto, y'all, on Saturday.
Yeah, that's going to be a big test as well.
Yeah.
1 second.
Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, on the other side of these changes is somebody who's getting bumped off of the top line and maybe out of the lineup altogether entering Saturday's matchup against Toronto. We'll see what these changes leave for Juuso Parssinen coming up. Plus, Phil Tomasino looks like he might get another chance. And Roman Josi off to a bit of a slow start. How much should we read into that? We'll dive into all of that in just 1 second. But first, want to mention again, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL season officially in full swing. Or if you're a Titans fan, the NFL season is just about over. Wherever you are, wherever your team is, you can snap into action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And that's because even though it's mid-season for the NFL, FanDuel is still accepting new customers, and they're offering $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when a new customer places a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So even if you bet on the Titans to do anything fruitful and they kind of screw you over, you lose the bet, you still get the $200 in bonus bets. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use, and there's plenty of betting options, including spreads, player props, like how many rushing yards is Derrick Henry going to get before he's traded to Cleveland or wherever, over-unders on point totals for the games, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, well, we were talking about some of the changes the Nashville Predators have made, at least in their practice line rushes. We talked about Cole Smith joining FIlip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly on that first line. Not many changes on that second or third line. You have Trennan, Sissons, Nyquist, Sherwood, Novak, Evangelista. And then on the bottom line, we have a combination of Phil Tomasino, Michael McCarron, and Sammy Fagemo. There is a name that we didn't mention. And it's not because we forgot. It's Juuso Parssinen.
Yeah.
At least on Wednesday's practice, was skating as kind of the extra forward, participating with like the D rushes.
Yeah.
And what do you make of a couple different things? One is Tomasino coming back in and Juuso Parssinen dropping out altogether.
Yeah, interesting move. I love seeing Tomasino on a line with McCarron and Fagemo. If you recall, Tomasino and McCarron really played well together on that fourth line back in the day. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of, interesting to see them reunited with Sam Fagemo, who brings kind of his own, this is a guy who's got a great shot, brings kind of a different skill set to that line. So I think that's interesting. But yes, Juuso Parssinen skating with kind of doing some practice stuff, line rushes with some defensemen or with Sam Foodie and a coach. So I don't know what to take from this. There is a part of me that's like, did he tweak something? Is he okay? Just maternally, I instantly go to, is he okay? I don't know. It's interesting because I love popping Cole Smith into that top line. But the fair point is, where do you put Juuso Parssinen? You don't want to mess with what you've got going with Tomo, Sherwood, and Evangelista right now. I mean, the kid line or kid adjacent line, they're cooking really well. You don't necessarily want to do too much with Nyquist, Sissons, and Trennan because they're working okay. And if you shift that, then you're really kind of shaking the whole Yahtzee container. But if you're bringing in Phil Tomasino and you're still trying to get a handle on what Sam Fagemo brings, there isn't necessarily a spot in practice, perhaps, I don't know, in a game on Saturday. So I don't know. I'm hesitant to read too much into it because there is an extra day. They've got some extra time between games and they may just be trying to sort of sort some things out, see some more of Fagemo. It's interesting, though, because Parssinen is not a player that I would have anticipated not playing a game. And now you have to go, is he a healthy scratch?
I'll have to go back and watch, I guess, his last shifts closely, but I think it was Alex Doherty that pointed out that he had actually kind of been demoted down to, bumped off that first line in each of the last 2 games.
Right.
So, I mean, I didn't notice anything obscenely wrong with his game. Like, it wasn't just, throwing the puck to the other team or anything like that, but maybe this is something like what we did see with Phil Tomasino, healthy scratch. Andrew Brunette pulling him out just to be like, look, we just, kind of need him to refocus a little bit. Like, he's working hard. It's just not really translating to, the game right now. Maybe that's a situation that they're looking at with Juuso Parssinen. He did get off to a great start this season. I think that, he was a big part of this early success of that first line. So who knows? Maybe this is just a reset. Maybe this is, Brunette trying to give people some other looks. It's interesting to see. Excited to see Tomasino back in the lineup and kind of what he's learned over the past week or so of practice, in which he hasn't really been playing in game action. Plus him with Fagemo, I think, is an interesting combo.
There's some offense there.
Yeah, Phil Tomasino is a guy who loves to pass, loves to create things for other people, and Fagemo, we mentioned, has that shot. I think that's maybe a combination that can work really well for the Nashville Predators, especially, if they get a decent amount of 5-on-5 time together.
Yeah.
Somebody on the back end, though, and that I think we all would love to see step up a little bit. Let's talk about Roman Josi's start to the season. No goals, just 3 points, 3 assists in 7 games this season so far in 2024. And were you expecting maybe a little bit of a stronger start for Roman Josi?
I was, especially in the sense that this is a roster that has some younger players on it. This is a roster that is learning a new system. And Roman Josi is one of those people that we have always known. He is old, reliable. No matter what is going on, you know that Roman Josi is going to be solid defensively, and you know that he is going to finish offensively. And I am a little bit surprised that we haven't seen him scoring some goals yet. I think there are a couple of reasons why. Number one, Andrew Brunette is like, look, I'm going to try to use Roman Josi in a little bit different role. Roman Josi is sort of the guy that everything goes through. He's the toll booth for offense for the Nashville Predators for seasons. Like, everything kind of runs through him. You're not getting on the highway unless it goes through, Roman Josi. And so I think that is a little bit different, systematically. Also, I think it matters that they're sort of changing up his role on the power play. If you watch the power play, there are times where Tyson Barrie is quarterbacking the power play. Roman Josi is playing some different areas. And I think it might take some time for him to get comfortable doing that. I think he's excited about that. I think that this long-term could be great for Roman Josi, but I am surprised because he was one of the players, like FIlip Forsberg for me, who I thought early, these guys are going to carry the team until everybody else gets up to speed. And that just hasn't happened. And I don't know if I can nail down 100% why. I don't know. What are your thoughts on what we're not seeing?
It's funny because I thought maybe they are, using him a little bit different. Maybe they're, bringing him back instead of, all these offensive starts that he had, maybe having him play a little bit more of a defensive role than he had been under John Hynes. And so I looked, and no, in fact, it's gone the other way. Andrew Brunette is actually starting him on offense more than John Hynes did. His about 72% of his zone starts have been in the offensive zone, only average about 65 under John Hynes. So it's actually going the other way. And I do think the power play is something that does probably contributes a little bit to that.
Yeah.
But you also want to see him kind of take the reins on 5-on-5 a little bit too, and jump into the play like he's been the past few years. And, I don't know if that's an Andrew Brunette change, if he's like, look, we kind of want you to hang back. But, when you have Dante Fabro as your defensive partner, somebody who, can kind of handle that blue line and be that stay-at-home guy, you would expect, especially in Andrew Brunette's style, for Josi to be somebody that sort of becomes more aggressive.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. And you look at something just statistically, you kind of look at, individual expected goals for, and this is somebody who normally is, one of the leaders on the team in that. And really, we're not seeing a ton of expected goals for from Roman Josi. Like, just, I don't know. It's just not, we haven't seen it materialize when it comes to goals yet. It's coming, but it does make you wonder, like, what is the difference here? Like, what is in the power play can only be used to kind of excuse so much of that statistically. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, we know they're using him different on the power play, but at 5-on-5, where is this disconnect? It's not like Dante Fabro's new. He's not new. They know each other. They played together. So yeah, you do kind of wonder. And that is a player. Roman Josi is a player that's a difference maker when he is on for this team. Huge difference maker for the team. Very much like, again, FIlip Forsberg. So those are two guys that the Predators have to get going. It's great that we're seeing scoring from Kiefer Sherwood, and we're seeing what Tommy Novak can do. And, Cole Smith has been off to a hot start. But you have got to get Roman Josi and FIlip Forsberg cooking offensively for this Nashville Predators team to be successful. And those two just... we're not there yet.
Yeah. We are going to have to see what happens Saturday against Toronto and see if there are any changes that come up from that as well. More to come from the Locked On Predators podcast in just 1 second.
First, want to let you know that this episode's brought to you by our great friends at Jace Medical. If you are a regular listener, you know this story. My husband and I were traveling internationally several years ago. We were overseas for about 17 days, and in the middle of our trip, I ended up getting really sick, and we were stuck. I was half a world away from my primary care doctor who understood my very specific medical situations, and we had to make do with whatever we could find over the counter in a pharmacy in another country. It was a little bit tricky until I could get home. Jace Medical wants to make sure that you don't have to be in that situation with their Jace case. The Jace case is a personalized emergency medication kit. It contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common bacterial infections. And now you can customize your case and add additional life-saving medication that's based on your own unique needs. Now you can choose the medications that best fit you and your family's medical needs. All it takes to get your Jace case is filling out a simple form online, and in some cases, jump on a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians. You can also get ongoing care from their physicians on any treatment-related questions. To get your Jace case, go to jacemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at Jace Medical, JASE medical.com.
Want to mention today's episode is also brought to you by Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. FIlip Forsberg could score 50 goals. The Nashville Predators could hoist the Stanley Cup. Or, more realistically, you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. It's so easy to use. All it works is you need to pick, 3 or 4 players like FIlip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, Tommy Novak, and then do over-under. Will they record more or less than their Sleeper projections for the game? Things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Preds fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. You can have the group chat function so you can talk with other fans around the NHL, see which players they're putting their money on. So maybe you can align with that, and you can make your entries in under a minute. It's so easy to use, but don't take it from me. Try it yourself. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. For the last segment of the show, there's something that Ann and I did want to talk about or offer our thoughts on, and that is the situation involving the Pride tape across the NHL. For those of you who don't know, earlier this week, the NHL has reversed its more or less de facto ban on Pride tape. That came after Arizona defenseman Travis Dermott decided to just say, screw that whole noise. I'm putting Pride tape on during this game anyway. Received a lot of attention for it. A lot of, I think, both kudos and, a little bit of, vocal opposition from some people. But the NHL has gone ahead and just reversed that earlier decision. So players are now allowed to wear Pride tape on their sticks. Not sure how this is going to affect any other sort of, celebrations moving forward. I think everybody certainly has thoughts on this. And I'll start with you and just kind of what your take over, maybe the initial saga and the news this week.
I think the NHL did not handle this well at all. I think in a league that you are looking to grow your fan base, in a league that you have used the tagline "hockey is for everyone," in a league that needs players to be more marketable, and to do that, they need to be more individualistic. They need to show more personality. I think banning anything like this, something so harmless as tape, for any group, any cause, any passion, any community, is just a horrible look for the NHL. I think it's a horrible look for the NHL. And it's almost like they just didn't think it through. And then once you have one player who says, okay, you're going to ban this, but I'm going to do it anyway, the NHL is caught with their pants down, and their hands were tied. Yeah. Their hands were tied. And you know what? They at least did the right thing with their hands tied and said, oops, sorry, we're not going to do anything, because this would have been even bigger of a cluster had they dialed down on this. But it is absurd to me that this is something that is happening in this league, that the league feels like they need to monitor this level of, y'all, it's tape on a stick. It's tape on a stick. And whether it is for one community, a marginalized community, whether it is for a cause or that is passionate, that a player is passionate about, whether it is to raise awareness about things, why are we not? I mean, they are whole people. They are grown ups. Most of them are grown ups. Some of them are very young, but they are grown ups. And for the NHL to have done this, it is not well thought out. And I think it is symptomatic of maybe a bigger problem with leadership in the NHL.
It seemed like an overcorrection to begin with, because, the reason this saga started, I think it was looking back, Ivan Provorov was the first one to decline to, wear the Pride warm-up jerseys. And then you see teams canceling Pride Night. And, a lot of the talk was because, there's somebody who didn't want to wear the jersey and the team didn't want them singled out. So just nobody wore it. Right. And look, I'm not naive enough to think that everybody is in the world is going to think the way I do. I'm not naive to think that everybody listening to this podcast right now is going to think the way I do. But, what the NHL did was take away the option.
Right.
And, that you're digging yourself into a slippery slope there if players aren't allowed to support Pride, because, there's other controversial issues on the other side. Like, what if there's I'm just spitballing here, but, a law enforcement night or something like that. And there's, a African-American player who doesn't, who has certain feelings on that. And, doesn't want to participate in that? What if there's a military appreciation night and somebody disagrees with, sort of the way that, the military has been used in foreign conflicts?
Right.
What if there are causes on, that are, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of lean the other way, that a player doesn't feel comfortable taking in? And, do you wind up banning those causes too? Do you wind up, is there the same amount of scrutiny for a player who doesn't want to participate in that? So it seems like you are, what the NHL did was, well, fine, we're just not going to do anything. And, you wind up losing, not only, a chance to do some good for a lot of LGBTQ advocacy groups, because a lot of those jerseys and stuff get auctioned off. You're potentially hurting your ability to, speak a cause for something else. And again, like, there's a lot of causes that some players might support that I don't necessarily agree with, and maybe they want to highlight that on their stick, and that's going to be their prerogative.
Right.
But I don't think you can. This seemed very much, a reaction to one specific issue, and instead you put, together basically a blanket policy that handcuffed you down the road. And that, to me, is where the NHL steered wrong. And look, if you don't want to wear the Pride jersey, don't wear the Pride jersey. Don't wear the Pride tape. You're going to have to face the reaction to that. Just like, if somebody were to kneel for the national anthem, that's their prerogative, and they're going to have to deal with the reaction to that. But, for the NHL to step in and be like, no, like, nobody can do anything. Like, we're going to be the league where there's no drama, and, it's all going to be hockey all the time. That's when you cut off, a player's individuality and their right to choose what they want to support and what they don't.
Yeah. And I think what concerns me the most is it feels like leadership in the NHL just doesn't know how to navigate hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to be able to navigate hard things like this. And I agree with you. I think they want, let's just be about hockey. We want to just be about hockey. You know what? Like it or lump it, sports is about more than sports. You can like that, you can hate that, but that is the reality right now. Sports is about more than sports. And I don't feel like the NHL knows how to navigate hard things well. And I think this is a prime example of that. And I think that's very problematic.
Yeah. And that's something that I think we've kind of been coping with for a while now in the NHL, where it's just, the other leagues have handled those difficult situations, those difficult topics much, much better than the NHL has. And who knows, maybe they'll learn from it someday.
It's
they
not
haven't
like
really in the past 4 or 5 years, but
well, and like you're saying, you've seen other leagues navigate this stuff. Why is the NHL not learning from others? It just feels like they're still staggering around in the dark a little bit on this stuff. It's hard to watch.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's our thoughts on the situation, and I feel like that is a good place to leave it. Tomorrow, we'll look ahead to the weekend for the Nashville Predators. What do they need to do to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs? Plus maybe some fun Friday activities for you coming up. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on, now we have X in our graphic.
We do have X in our graphic.
Twitter X, still can't get there, at @AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me on X at _NS Morgan. Read my work at penaltyboxradio.com. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back with an all new episode tomorrow. We'll see you then.